Hello, everyone. Welcome to the State of Illuvium 2022. This is our first time doing one of these. It's a recap of everything that happened in 2022 with Illuvium, a preview of what we have in store for 2023, and the vision of where the Illuvium universe is going moving forward. Here's your 2022 recap in the State of Illuvium. First things first was the Illuvidex launch.
Basically, the Illuvidex is our marketplace and repository of information at the same time. And when you combine those two together, as well as adding onto it a launch platform for various sales that we will have going forward, it was definitely the most complex thing that we had done to date up until that point. So the Illuvidex is not just an aggregate of blockchain transactions. It's already hard enough being a layer 2 solution. There are some differences there that make it different from just having an exchange on layer 1. But the hardest part of it was building it in a modular way so that we could actually put these specific sale events, or there's going to be other events that aren't specifically sales that will go onto there.
And that led us to the next development in our 2022 launches, which was staking V2. And that dropped right there in Q1 of 2022.
I'll be totally honest. The biggest essential feature of staking V2 was to fix a particular issue. There was a bug that led to some big problems later on, but there was an additional bug that people didn't realize at the time. And effectively what that meant was that as people started to make their claims, the cost of claiming would go up for that person. And that was like, it would actually get to a critical point where people's money was going to be, not worth it to claim at all, because it would hit a ceiling whereby it was way higher than what any particular claim could be. The day after we launched staking V1, we said, nope, we're going to get this out of the way and get it done. We went through all of the requirements that we needed to get it done. And by the time we built out what the plan was going to be, it had ballooned into this monster. I don't think people realize it, but it reached the bytecode limit for the blockchain. So the contract couldn't be any bigger than what it actually was. There's a bunch of other upgrades that are in there that help people out, like being able to transfer. They get a lot better gas fees. It's so much more optimized. If people look at it now, there isn't a rising gas fee claim. Plus, we reduced those fees by a massive amount. Plus, we added a lot better analytics and tracking for it, a lot of other optimizations.
Illuvium Arena Private Beta 1. The polish that this private beta, I mean, I've played so many closed betas and private betas of games before. The level of polish on this, it exceeded the launch products of easily 90% plus of what's already out there in our space.
We needed to have a range of characters in that beta that would give people the full experience. And we didn't start the tier 0 alluvials until quite a bit later, because we were still developing them conceptually while we were in the process of building out the start of it. So they didn't actually get into the art pipeline until too late to hit this beta. They would have been the perfect ones because they cover all classes and affinities. So that meant that we needed to cover all classes and affinities with other characters inside of that beta. The tricky part with that is that each of those characters has unique omegas and unique attacks, and we wanted them to be as polished as we could possibly make them. So finding that right balance of characters and finding that right balance of different omegas was probably the biggest thing. We're using, I think, something on the order of maybe 85 different skeletal models for the different creatures, which means that they're almost all unique, and it's just ridiculously tough to do. The other side of it was that we wanted to have a fully data-driven system, and we needed to build out the final state of the auto battler before we started implementing any characters. Just in the last couple of weeks, we've added, I believe, 5 new modules to that system. And just those 5 new modules means that our Omega system goes from something on the order of a quadrillion different options that we can choose, up to something like 180 quadrillion options.
How did it feel to see these Illuvials on the screen in action with these AAA graphics, with the ray tracing? How did that moment feel for you to sit down and play it?
Yeah, it was ridiculous, man. Like we've been talking about this our entire lives. Like genuinely, Aaron, Grant, myself, even Kane, our eldest brother, we have been playing games since I can remember, right? And I'm obviously the youngest, and so like all I remember is us just playing game after game after game. And our dad was always in the back of his mind. He thought, with the different skill sets that we had, that we could potentially create a game one day, and so seeing it go live and actually being able to play it, not only did Grant and I get heavily addicted to it for like 2 weeks, and it started becoming a massive problem for like our workflow. Like we needed to get back into the DAO and contributing, but it was just, like, I can't even describe the feeling.
Have we shared the numbers on how many thousands of people tested Private Beta 1? Do you guys know that off the top of your head? A rough number?
I think Private Beta 1 was about 20,000. We let
20,000 or so?
Yeah.
20,000.
That's awesome. So thank you to all 20,000 of you. I wanted to tee that up to thank you for testing the game, for giving us feedback, and for sharing your valuable time on a game that was this early in development. We really appreciate you investing your time at that. Q2 2022, we did the land sale. Wow, what an event. What was the most unexpected thing that resulted from the land sale?
The most unexpected thing was that we had zero problems with it. Right? It went off without a hitch at all, and that's uncommon for such a big thing, right? Such a big sale event that went on from start to finish without us needing to do anything. Like, we had put in place plans to halt the sale. We had put in place plans to be able to reverse things in case there was issues with it, and all sorts of contingencies. There were like contingencies on contingencies on contingencies. And I think because we had planned all of that out, we sort of covered all of our bases, and it meant that we never needed to use them, and it just went smoothly for people.
One thing that I really wish I had have thought of earlier, so we could have added it into the sale, was megacities, right? Like that, as soon as, and this is part of my problem, right? Until I'm like in the headspace of like, okay, if we're buying it, what's going to make people like, what's going to make things like chaos and create a whole bunch of FOMO, and I need and buy more and whatever, like, and it was right at the last minute that I was like, hey, Aaron, this would be a cool feature. And he was like, God damn, like, where were you on that one 3 months ago when we were building this? I've written out all of this documentation. And I was like, well,
by the time we do the next land sale, we will have Illuvium 0 out. So if I could add one more thing, it would be a live plot viewer. So what you see is the actual aspects of the plot, such as the fact that it has, this sort of resource on it or that sort of site, and that's fine. And we did a viewer for that to show roughly what the plot would look like. But I think it would be much cooler to be able to see how someone's building up their land, possibly throw in a couple of features such as a privacy filter, so that if you wanted to peer in and look at how someone's doing it and they have a privacy filter up, you can't. But in general, I think it would be really cool to be able to look at a land plot that you want to purchase and know what the current state of the structures on it is.
In Q3 2022, there was the Illuvidex V2 upgrade.
The main upgrades between V1 and V2 were about quality of life improvements, things like responsiveness, accuracy with certain information, being able to do some smaller functions, extra analytics that are available to the customer, things like being able to transfer their land. They originally had to do it using other marketplaces. This is what we will do for all of our projects. All of our projects will start off in one state and they will gradually get better over time. We're not in the business of getting something out and then just leaving it to the side after it's been used. These things will gradually improve over and over and over again. If you come back in 10 years' time, it will look completely different to how it looks now. And it'll be based on feedback from the customers. It'll be based on ideas that we've had from necessities, new technologies, all that sort of stuff. And it'll just keep on getting better. V3 is all about getting the features that we need for Illuvitars. And if we can get it in, then it'll also be about the repository, which is where all of the information sits inside of the Illuvidex. So at the moment, there's not really an easy way to see, what are the drop rates on a particular region? What are the various alluvials that are in the game? What are their abilities? Effectively like a giant wiki of information. And more than that, we have this whole system that goes behind the scenes that we're building called Achievements, which is all about taking all of the things that any individual NFT does. So whether that be an alluvial and how it operates in any of the individual games, or whether it be some sort of a plot or a disc or tracking where it's going throughout its history, we want you to be able to see how everything progresses outside of the game. And this is where I talk about having that metagame outside of the metagame. We want you to be able to purchase a Ramfire and value it because it has the highest damage count of any Ramfire in the entire world, possibly the highest damage count of any character inside of the game. We want you to be able to see the level. We want you to be able to see who was the first person to catch a particular one. But then on the individual state, we want you to be able to see who first caught that specific alluvial and who owns it now, how has it transferred ownership in between those times. If Kieran's bought one or Grant's bought one or me, and then you find that valuable, I don't know why you would, but if you want to then own it later on, you should be able to do that. And it's that integration of information that I think people are sleeping on, because that's what's going to connect all of these games together with a community, rather than just the functionality of being able to take an asset from one game to another.
Private beta 2.
We added all of the linkses and all of the tier zeros. It might not sound like a lot, but that's over 100 units that were added to the game. The other thing was a few more little mechanics that made the experience a bit better around things like being able to roll back to a previous level, augments, interest. There's a number of things that went into there. There is one more feature that would be in survival that people don't know about yet that will go. I'm not even sure if it's going to get in there for private beta 3, but I think once people see it, they'll realize the utility of it, and it'll be very cool. It'll be a way for them to connect through to the overworld and a couple of other things that they can do. So that's pretty exciting.
The first morning of the conference, and I see an alluvial that isn't in private beta 1, and I'm like, whoa, what is happening here? Like there must be some kind of glitch or something. And then you looked at me and you're like, it's private beta 2. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? And so that reaction for myself was ridiculous. And so I tried to personally, after that, stay away, because I literally got addicted to playing private beta 1, and with the add-ons that they had in private beta 2, I knew that they were the things that were missing out of private beta 1, right? Like all the new alluvials that they had in, the addition of augments was just made it so much more complex. And then again, those checkpoints, which was making everyone go crazy and go, you know what, I'm not playing this anymore because I get up to level 28, then I die, then I have to go through another. It's like an hour of gameplay to get back up there. And so I knew, like, I'm staying away. But I tell you what, and obviously we'll talk about this soon, but when PvP comes out, you won't see me. that will be that will be the end for me. I will never return to Illuvium. I'll be stuck inside the universe.
Illuvium Overworld Beta dropped here in Q4, which is an exciting moment for all of us.
So I think what a lot of people don't realize about it was that when we put out that trailer, a lot of people thought that it was just pre-scripted footage and it was like pre-rendered and stuff like that. That was literally recorded with a 2070, and it was just in-game footage captured from NVIDIA capture software. It's exactly what you see here, but what we didn't have were all of the connection pieces to allow people to go between the different regions. We didn't have the ability to allow people to connect to a region, go and collect and get their own personal stash of things in there. There was a lot of collection features that weren't done by that point last year. We needed to make sure that the quality of the graphics was something that we were happy with. And our point that we said we're done with the region, so Crimson Waste, when we said we're going to stop on it, was at our 80% mark. So there's still a 20% extra push that we can do to optimize, make things look nicer, make things more interactive. There's way more things going in there. And that was super important for us to make sure that we at least had some level of quality of all of those different features. There's things that we've deliberately kept out so that we can force people to go through the fairly grindy parts of the game, because at its heart, there is that grind to it. And we wanted to make sure that people found that enjoyable. We've been blown away by the feedback from the community, loving the grind, loving the experience, all of that sort of stuff. There'll always be that drive to just make it a little bit better all of the time. And I know that Grant is exactly the same as me when it comes to the graphics. It's always, it looks good, but why doesn't it look ungodly amazing? And he always had this vision in his head that it was going to be the best graphics that you could possibly get out of a video game. And I was like, well, we can't do that. We don't have a team of 1,000 people. How are we going to do it? But it's just, nope, go do it and come back to me when it's done. And then the art team goes away and they come back and they say, here you go, best graphics that you can get. And that just seems to be a formula that works.
I hadn't seen the final form of the Overworld, and when I got in and started playing that, and yeah, it just, that was the most next level feeling I've ever had in my entire life, right? And mainly because I know how crazy hard these guys have worked, right? Across every single department, whether it be the art teams, the dev teams, the ops teams, the marketing teams. There's just something about the team that we've built. And when you play that Overworld, I know we've only let 30,000 people in, but when you play it, and trust me, I've been playing it. I've got my own Twitch stream now. Like, who would have thought? If you told me that 2 years ago, I would have been like,
he's a Twitch streamer now, guys.
You're insane. But, you know, I'm there and I'm like, I'm loving this. Like last night, I got a cucker and I was like, yes, I finally got a cucker. And it's that feeling of what Pokemon was to me. So, like,
Cool.
Boiling it all down, that's what we wanted to. And Aaron was less interested in creating the Pokemon style of game. Like, we really had to go hard at him to say, like, please design in the collection style game. But now that you're playing it, it's like, holy shit, have we actually have we created the new age of collection games here? And yeah, man, I'm pumped.
Game Awards, we won Best RPG 2022. Awesome, we did that. Thank you very much. Forge app, ready for a future race potentially. So, Kieran, what's context on Forge app that people need to know?
Yeah, so it essentially allows retail investors, so people in our community, in the same terms as what a institutional investor would receive. It allows them to participate in any future capital raises that we have. Now, obviously, it's to implement a capital raise in the first place, it needs to be voted on by the council. So it's very decentralized in that nature. The next time that we do a large scale capital raise, we can offer it to people who are diehards in the community who believe in Illuvium. And the way that it works is there's large lockup times. So it's really targeted at those people that see this grand vision that we have of we're not going anywhere for the next 10, 15, 20 years. One of the things that we are really excited about is we've got a strong blockchain team. Pedro, who heads it up, he's exceptional at what he does. I think, we got him at such a young age, but we want to build DeFi tools that we can start to license out to other protocols and then earn revenue from that. And again, just fill up that vault so our investors, the ILV holders, are getting benefits from us building these DeFi applications that are, not only benefiting Illuvium, but helping out other protocols as well.
Let's get into 2023, boys. This next year, though, Illuvium 0 Alpha.
I think Alpha is not doing it justice. I know that Johnny probably wouldn't want me to put extra expectations on it beyond it being an alpha. And there are definitely some parts of it that we'd probably both agree are alpha, but it's such a beautiful game. It's just relaxing and simple. It's just like a peaceful sci-fi version of something like Simpsons Tapped Out. And you can just sort of get lost in it. The UI is, in my opinion, quite good. We still have room to improve to make things a little bit easier to see. There's optimizations that we need to do to make sure that it runs on lower level devices. But once we get all of those individual animations in there, people are going to love it. The game by itself, I believe, sits at something like maybe 3 gigabytes, something like that. It's pretty massive considering that the overworld is 10 gigabytes, and that's including arena as well. So it's quite a big game. It's got beautiful art in there. And overall, we just think that people are going to have a lovely experience playing it.
What do people need to do to be able to get access? I mean, you have to be a landowner, correct?
Yeah, so we've gated it so you have to be a landowner, and this is another situation where we said that land would come out at a certain time after the land sale. I think we said 4 to 6 weeks after, right? And then we decided to go pretty next level. Johnny wanted to add in a whole bunch of stuff into the gameplay, which makes it, I'm being told, makes it much more immersive. I'd love to know, but I'm not allowed in to
all this salt here, man. Wow.
But yeah, so we wanted to give something to those landholders that backed us so long ago now, and so yeah, you have to be a landholder to get into the alpha. That's obviously going to change once it does go into beta. People that have been waiting are just like, they're bashing down that gate. And so we're really happy for us to be able to actually give a date that is a solid date. It is happening on the 6th of next month. And finally, those people will be able to enjoy playing their land.
Illuvitars in Q1 2023.
The Illuvitar itself is a base image of a particular alluvial. In the first of our sales, there will be 25 plus an additional 25, which are the tier zeros that people can get. So there'll be 50 to get. But over the course of the next year or so, we will have all of them be launched. On top of that, you get these things called accessories that fit into accessory slots, and they adjust the image to match that particular one. We have billions of combinations of these effectively hand-drawn artworks, and that's just absolutely stunning to me. And that's without talking at all about the Illuvitars album, which is a way for you to collect them into various collections based on the different metadata properties of them. So instead of being able to just own one and put it as your Twitter profile, you can own many of them, and you can start to look forward to collecting, for example, all of the water alluvials, and you can try to collect all of the fire or all of the tsunami, etc., etc., etc. There are, I believe, something like 270 different collections that are available from this. At the start, there's only going to be a few collections that they can complete, but that's because we're only releasing a subset of them. They'll be able to do all of the tier 0 collections from this first batch of Illuvitars. There are different expressions, so you can get Atlas in a neutral pose, and you can also get Atlas in a bit of a brawler pose where he's looking quite tough. And that has a different rarity, and it gives you a different amount of power for that Illuvitar. When you combine it with different accessories that have different multipliers, you start to be able to build these combinations, and you watch the power meter of the Illuvitar start to crank up and go around, and then you put it into a slot, and all of a sudden your collection points have just gone through the roof. And it just, I don't know, there's just such a cool feeling about that. There is, I think, something like 350 pages of documentation that cover all of the little aspects of what Illuvitars is, and people are going to go nuts for it. It'll be absolutely insane.
We have the two types of discs, which will have your normal Illuvitars inside them. But the thing that I'm most excited about now is the partnerships, right? We've got partnership promo discs that you can buy, and we've started conversations with, and not just started conversations, we've literally gotten to the point where we've signed 2 deals now. We can't reveal what they are yet, but they are huge brands that you'll see every single day in real life. And we literally want to get that product to a point where we partner up with someone like a McDonald's, and instead of it just being your digital Illuvitar, with that, you might get an Illuvitar coming in your Happy Meal, right? Like things like that, where it's bridging the gap between the digital and the physical.
Moving into Private Beta 3, Aaron, what do we want to say about what will be unique or interesting about Arena Private Beta 3?
The number one thing will be Ascendant mode. So, or at least some version of Ascendant mode, similar to how in Private Beta 1 we had Survival mode, and that has evolved over time, and it has still evolved. There's things that people don't know about Survival mode that we have internal. So the major part of it is player versus player, which is what Ascendant mode is. We have some cool ways that we're connecting people to emotes and skins and stuff like that. Plus, there will be quite a significant number more alluvials available for that. At the moment, I don't think that we'll get all of them in, but we should get a decent amount. There's not a whole lot of lines left to do, but that is definitely the biggest part of what the private beta will be about, is getting people to play against each other, fight each other, battle.
PvP, Private Beta 3. Thank you for describing that. Now we have Overworld Private Beta 2. What do we want to say about Private Beta 2? What are some of the aspects of that we want to reveal or not? I'll kick this over to you, Aaron.
There are a few things that we've already told people about, such as new movement mechanics that will be part of it. There are some polishing features that we need to do with the Alluvial Wakes. At public beta launch, there'll still be wakes. We're not going straight away to some sort of a giant Monster Hunter style of game. So there'll still be wakes, but they'll have a bit more creative pathfinding and things like that. There is one feature that I won't mention, but it will make the world feel a little bit more populated, is probably the right way to describe it. And there's one other feature that will go in that will make the experience a little bit more frantic, is probably the way that I would describe it. But both of those features link into a little bit more of the lore of the game. And we really don't want to give away too much before we drop the release cinematic trailer. And the final part of it is that there'll be 2 more regions if we can get it in time. There'll be definitely one, but I'd prefer to go with 3, even if the third region is a little bit more blocked out. Maybe it's not at that 80% polish state, because people will understand what our level of 80% polish is from the other regions. But I have a sneaking suspicion that we might be able to get it in.
On the slide, I had merchandise store.
Yeah, so this was one that we were really trying to get out before the holiday period. We've gotten to a stage now where the actual storefront is ready. It's connected. It's going to be inside the Illuvidex, but the range that we have is just not quite there. So a week ago, we got samples that were sent to the office, and I would say we're about 85% of the way there. And it's very similar to how we do everything in Illuvium. Unless it's like perfect, we're just not going to release it, right? And I know people are saying when merch, and we're absolutely not going to release something that isn't super high quality, that isn't in the price range, that fits across the board. There are going to be some pieces which priced a little bit higher, but they're going to be really nice fabrics that are, super durable and really cool designs. And then there's going to be more of the basic stuff that just has, prints of alluvials and stuff like that are in the cheaper side of things. But there's going to be something for everyone. And I promise you, it is coming in 2023. We're doing everything we can to get it out in Q1. Yeah, so Gov V2, I made a tweet about this ages ago, and where it came out of was I've been on the council for pretty much every epoch, I think apart from one. And one of the things that has come out of those councils and certainly the meetings is we sometimes don't have the right diverse mix of people that are discussing the different proposals that come through. We wanted things to be more decentralized, so that we needed more people to be inside of the governance process. And obviously we are decentralized in the way that all of the token holders vote in the people that end up on the council, but the decision making being 5 people, it's not the most decentralized model you can use, and it's definitely not the most efficient. So governance V2 is all about bringing in more people into the process. Rich really just took it upon himself. He said, "You know what? Tell me what you're thinking. I'm going to then give my thoughts. We're going to put it all on paper." And he's come up with a really good system. It's now being reviewed by our in-house counsel, and we're hoping to have that. I think the council was like, if you don't get this back to us fully reviewed by the 7th of next month, then we are releasing it to the public, and that's it. There's no more delays there.
Public beta launch. What are the pieces and components involved? Aaron?
All 3 games need to be through a quality control process where we're happy for them to be launched to the masses, where anyone can download, anyone can play. Obviously, we have a large free-to-play component of the game, and there are a lot of features that people will be able to do without giving any money into the system. So we just need to make sure that all of those are optimized, and we're streamlining people towards understanding all of the different features of our ecosystem so that we can onboard them to eventually become not just tier 0 players, but tier 1 through 5 players. The other thing that we need is a few more pieces that will be available on layer 2 to allow our not really the financial side of it, but just the ability to trade fuel for other tokens such as ETH and things like that. Then we need to interconnect all of them from the perspective of the blockchain. That's actually one of the easier things that we can do now, because we've done a lot of the work upfront in building out our back-end systems to be able to do all of these things. So, just little things like when you want to buy an Illuvitar, for example, you trade some amount of ETH or SRV2, and you get that Illuvitar, our backend sort of makes a request for IMX to be able to mint that for you, and then it hands it off to you. So there's always this like custodial piece that we need to build out for all of the games. When you go to Sanctum Mesa and you want to forge something, what you're doing on the back end is you're effectively saying, I want to give you these 2 things, or 3 or 5, whatever it happens to be, so that you can burn them. But I expect in return for IMX to mint some cool new thing, and then I expect you to give it to me. We've spoken quite openly about things like eventually sort of decommissioning the encounter mode and replacing it with a Monster Hunter style game where you're interacting with the Illuvials in the environment. We are going to move to that, but it won't be before we go to private beta. I think that shooting the wake in a roundabout way will absolutely be a feature of the game, but the Illuvials won't run away. Let's put it that way. At the moment, they're running away and leaving behind the singularity that you can follow, right? Going to this other place, and at some point in time, they won't be scared no more, and there'll be a whole new game. But there will be a progression of things that we're adding to the game up until that point to make it feel quite seamless. We have a thing called the random stats for each character, and it comes from this one unique ID that you'll get at the time of minting. That unique ID will work out what your random stats are in every game that we have and every game that we will have into the future. So you can have stats for a particular character, like your Atlas might be slightly better at a particular thing in one game, and you don't even know it, but in 10 years' time, there's going to be another game, and he might be super powerful in that particular one. That's going to be exciting. But I think probably the more exciting thing for me is that once all of these games start to interconnect, we'll start to have situations like Selenium shortages because people want to get the slick wheels that work really well on Brightland Steps track for the Illuvicars game, or it could be that there's a particular weapon that works out really well in some sort of a dungeon crawler. I'd rather not die, so let's leave it there, and we'll leave a little bit of mystery for what's to come in 2023.
Fantastic. Guys, I want to thank you so much for spending all this time with me and sharing all these insights with our audience about 2022, where our vision is and where we're going 2023 and beyond. And of course, all of us, on the behalf of everyone in Illuvium, we all want to say thank you to our community and to our team for supporting this project and coming together in this decentralized experiment. Thank you, Kieran. Thank you, Aaron. I really appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. See you next time.
Cheers.
Bye.
Perfect.